Hello, and welcome to the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning, your host, and also the president and co founder of Let Them Live. We bring you interviews with unsung heroes and inspiring individuals who are in the fight to save babies, mothers, and fathers from abortion. Our goal is to amplify their voices and bring their stories to the forefront, shedding light on the incredible work they do and the lives they touch. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform that allows everyone to share their pro-life stories and inspire us to passionately continue advocating for life. Welcome back, everyone, to another Let Them Live podcast. Today, I'm so excited to have such an amazing person on, Nicole Denny. Nicole has such an awesome history with Let Them Live, and also has an amazing story of her own regarding abortion. And so I'm really excited. Thanks for agreeing to do this with me, Nicole.
Yes, I was honored that you asked me, so thank you.
Why don't you tell everyone what you do for Let Them Live and maybe how you started with Let Them Live? I know it was as a volunteer maybe, or just as a counselor. So
Well, I've been with Let Them Live for a little over 3.5 years now. I cannot believe how much the time has just flown by. So I technically applied to be a volunteer pregnancy counselor, and Nathan, Emily's husband, interviewed me, and then he just was like, you know what, this is actually going to be a part-time position for you, and we'd be happy to have you come on. So that was how it started. I stayed in counseling for about, I think, a year, maybe a year and a half, and then switched over to the operations side. And now I do human resources, which is more in line with the work that I was doing before I joined the pro-life movement. And now I'm actually working on something else. It's a bit of a little secret that we're not really sharing yet, but we got something else in the works.
yay, I love that. I know the secret.
I know.
No one else does. No, that's awesome. And it's honestly been so amazing because you came to Let Them Live at a time when we really needed you, and just to see how long you've stuck around and how much you've put into it. It's so amazing because I've had other people on the podcast, and it's amazing to see how much we all love Let Them Live. And it's awesome for Nathan and I to see. So I'm glad that you are with us.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with Let Them Live.
And when you were a counselor, I know that your own personal story is something that helped so many moms and helped you as a pregnancy counselor to, relate to moms, and to kind of tell them hey, I've done this. You don't want to go there. You don't want to do this. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about when you found out you were pregnant, about your story, and just how everything unfolded.
Yeah, sure. So I found out I was pregnant when I was 16, but just going back to my childhood, I was a bit of a quiet, withdrawn child. I liked doing things like playing with baby dolls. I was very protective of all my baby dolls. I had Barbies and Cabbage Patch Kids. I had a ton. I wish I had a photo here to show you or something, because there's one photo I can think of that's me sitting on my bed, and there's all these dolls lined up in this shelf that's attached to the waterbed that I had, and they're all just sitting there. But I loved playing with these baby dolls. And then as a teenager, that love for playing with my little dolls turned into a real love for children. And I became a certified, I had a certificate. I was a certified babysitter. I was CPR trained. There was this training that my school offered. And so I babysat kids and just loved taking care of little babies. Although I wasn't chomping at the bit to be a mom then, I couldn't wait to be a mom. Future me was oh, I can't wait for marriage and kids. And then once I was 15, maybe even the start of being 16, I didn't have a whole lot of friends. I had this handful of really good friends that I loved hanging out with all the time. We did typical teenager things, partying, not good typical teenager things. We were partying and drinking alcohol and stuff. And I just kind of fell into that lifestyle pretty suddenly, and started spending time with this one guy and lost my virginity to him, and found out I was pregnant not that long after that. If you know much about my family, just like my mom was she was very centered on like education is so important. So her also having been a teenage mom, she had my older sister Tasha when she was 15. My mom really like tried to drill into us the importance of not getting pregnant as a teenager and not having ourselves in those kinds of situations. So finding myself there, I was terrified and I didn't want to tell my mom, but I knew that I had to because I didn't have my license yet, didn't have a vehicle. The guy that I got pregnant from, he was not the best kind of guy. I knew that like my mom, if she knew that I was hanging out with him, she wouldn't have liked it. He was older than me. He was 22 and I was 16. So that would have caused a huge problem in and of itself. And I knew I had to tell her. So I was terrified.
Yeah, that sounds honestly pretty similar to a lot of the situations that we see with moms that let them live. Really scared to tell their family, and lacking a lot of the resources they need, especially when we have like teen moms. Can't even imagine how scared they must be. So for
Mhm.
you to be able to put yourself back in that mindset, to help other women is really amazing. When you first found out you were pregnant, in the moment, like describe how were you feeling? Like what was your initial reaction? Was it just like total fear? Was there any point where you were like excited, or was it just scared?
So I knew that I was pregnant without having taken a pregnancy test. I don't, go like explaining that to someone because I just had not seen a positive pregnancy test yet, but my period was just like not coming and not coming. I was trying so hard to like wish it away because I knew I was like, I am pretty certain that this is what's going on here. And I told the guy, and he was excited, which made it even worse for me because I was like, how can you be excited about this? And that honestly started giving me a little bit of hope that this would be okay, that we would just have this baby together. But when it came time to tell my mom, she was not excited. She did not respond in a very favorable way. I walked into her bedroom and I said, I'm pregnant. And she said, oh my God, what are you going to do? And for some reason, that wording just like threw me off. I came in there ready to like give her my speech of, hey, I know this is not ideal, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to, keep this baby. And me and this guy, we're going to, work through this. He's excited, but I never could even get that out. When she said, what are you going to do? It filled me with fear. And I just felt that like overwhelming stress of, oh, this is on me, and I knew in that moment that she was not going to be happy to hear me say, I want to keep the baby. So I said, oh, I'll have an abortion. And she said, okay, good. I'll make the appointment for you. And so I was like, oh, I think I knew and I read that correctly. So I just kind of just like shut myself down on the inside. I was pretty upset about it. I just didn't let her know that I was. And I just kind of accepted that this was what was going to happen.
Yeah, that's so tough, especially as a 16-year-old. And what were, maybe even before you were pregnant, did you have any like beliefs on abortion, or like an understanding of what it was, or what did your family think of abortion? Like what were the thoughts surrounding abortion itself?
I guess it's kind of strange because we actually had not talked about abortion much in my family. We didn't, that subject never really came up. I think like looking back, I would say that I felt like it was wrong. I didn't grow up in a Christian household though. So it was just one of those like almost like a taboo thing. Like I knew that abortion was like removing a fetus from a uterus, like, and if you had asked 16-year-old me, I would have said that like, oh, it's removing a fetus from the uterus from a woman that doesn't want it. But I never voiced an opinion I had on it. But I did feel deep down that it was wrong.
Yeah, like in your gut. That is interesting. I mean, it does show the importance too of of nowadays, like sharing about abortion in the right time and in
Mhm.
the right way with our kids,
Mhm.
so that they are knowledgeable about it. This is something I am thinking back on when I was 16. I'm like, you know, I probably, like, I would say I was against abortion, but did I really know what that meant?
Mhm.
No. Did I really understand the consequences of it? Did I understand like the aftermath of it, what it actually entailed? No. So maybe talk a little bit about your actual abortion experience, like what type
Mhm.
of abortion it was, just your emotions going through that.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that this was 2005, so I know that looking back, I'm pretty certain that the abortion pill was around then, but it was not prevalent like it is now, where you can pretty much get an abortion pill off the internet, essentially on the black market. It wasn't like that then though. So you were pretty limited to a surgical abortion, and that's what I got. I did have to be accompanied by my parents. I think now in North Carolina, which is the state that I live in, you can be accompanied just by an adult that's over 18. But it wasn't like that in 2005. It had to be one of your parents. They had to come with you. And so my mom drove me to the clinic, and it was in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is the capital of the state. There weren't many other abortion clinics at that time. I don't think. I think that might have been the only one, even. I'm not sure about that though. And so she took me, and there were a lot of other women there. I remember being surprised by that. And my mom was too. She even comments on that when we were sitting in the waiting room. She was like, there's a lot of women here. I mean, there was probably 50 or 60 women sitting in the waiting room, and it was women from you could tell all walks of life. If you had seen these women on the street, you would not ever think that they had gotten an abortion. And it just goes to show you that we have this mindset of a certain type of woman that gets an abortion, but it's not there are not it's not a certain type of woman. There's women all ages in there. There was one, I only saw one other girl that I could clearly tell was probably my age, maybe even a bit younger. She could have been 14. She looked very young,
Oh my,
and she looked terrified. And she was also there with her mother. And she just looked down the whole time, and she had her arms crossed, and she just kept her face down. And I tried to make eye contact with her, but she would never look up. I was
that's heartbreaking.
I think that I was looking for any glimpse of anything, someone give me some kind of sign. I don't really even really know what I was looking for, but I was trying to make eye contact, and no one really would.
Do you ever wonder, like, about her, like, specifically, or like where she is in her life and like how
Yes.
she's doing?
Yes, she actually comes to mind. So just several times over the course of my life, I've thought about her, and I try to remember what she looks like, but her face is just hazy now in my
Yeah.
memory, because this was almost 19 years ago. It's been a while. So I got a surgical abortion, as I said. I requested to be put to sleep. I was terrified that it was going to be painful. And I also just mentally did not want to be aware of what was going on. And I felt like to be asleep would kind of, in a way, remove me of the remove me from the situation. At least mentally, I would be not aware of what was going on. I would wake up and it will have already been done. And so that's how that happened. I woke up in the recovery room, and it had been done. Unfortunately, I was instantly regretful, and I wasn't expecting that. So that was pretty surprising, and it really scared me to be flooded with I'm just essentially that emotion of what have I done? Just regret, remorse, instantly, and wishing that I could take it back. So I became very emotional and almost like a panic attack way, and started crying very hard. I know that I was concerning the other women that were sitting around me, and they began crying, and then that scared me more. And so I started screaming, and I was shaking, and a couple of the nurses, or maybe they were counselors, I'm not really sure what their position was, but they came running in and just wheeled my bed out without even saying anything.
They wanted to take you away because if you kept doing that, then it would maybe like scare other people. or something. Like it wasn't that they actually like cared about you in that moment. It was like, let's remove her from the situation.
Exactly. Yeah, like women were already crying and they were starting to cry harder, which was, like I said, making me cry harder. And then they were crying harder, and then I was screaming. And I'm pretty certain that something like that could like cause like a mass panic in like a room that has like 25 women that are all in recovery beds. I mean, this like was a huge room, and everyone's like lined up in a bed. Or I mean, like not really a bed. It was like a recliner chair, but it laid back like a bed. And so when they pushed me out, it was like a bed being wheeled out.
As like the nurse or whoever it was that went back there to like take you out, how can you see that, witness that, and it's not just one woman crying, it's all of these women clearly in pain,
Mm-hmm.
maybe physical pain as well as
Hmm.
emotional pain, and not question everything about what you're doing with your life. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just heartbreaking.
Well, even more heartbreaking to me, that said that might happen pretty often, because it was almost like they had a system in place to get the problem woman out to not cause a mass panic. There was another woman like in a room, like the room that they put me into. There was another woman in there sitting ready, like they already had her there, and I do believe that she was a counselor, and she was trying to, comfort me, I guess in like the way that they would. And she was like, "Hey, what's wrong? Like, why are you upset about this?" And I was like, I don't know how to explain this other than to just say this, but I feel like I just committed murder. Like that's what I said to her. And I was like, shaking, and I was like, "Is that what I did? Like, I don't like, why do I feel this way?" And she was like, "No, that's not what you did. It's not a baby. It's a clump of cells." And she like went back through that initial explanation that they give you when they're counseling you at the beginning. And
Yeah.
when they're giving you the ultrasound, they're saying the same thing. Like, there's that clump of cells on the screen. Um, no, we don't want you to see it. They turned the screen away. That's what they did for me anyways. And I told her, I was like, "Well, I mean, like, why do I feel this way?" And she was like, "Your hormones are all out of whack because your body still thinks that it's pregnant, and it will for a couple of weeks. That's how
Well,
that
and that's
works."
so true what she said, but that's not like a positive thing. She's saying that like
Mhm.
it's like a matter of like a fact. Oh yeah, that's just what it is. It's like, no, that's a terrible thing. Your body is like, what's going on here?
Mhm. Yeah, it's actually it's kind of odd to think about the concept, right? Because your body knows that it's pregnant, and it's flooding nutrients into your uterus. It's feeding the baby in there. And for there to be a sudden removal that the body didn't do on its own, like we know that a natural miscarriage is not the same as an abortion, even though it's medically called a spontaneous abortion that can't be further from the truth. Your body is doing something, it's, doing some kind of shedding that it felt that it needed to, like whatever the reason was. That's not how abortion is treated, because your body doesn't know what's happening. And then it's almost like your body goes into a bit of a shock panic mode, and you're flooded with hormones. Like, why would you be flooded with hormones? It's like your body is trying to figure out like what just happened, what's going on, and it's concerned.
Do you ever wonder, and maybe you've been asked this, but if you had been shown the ultrasound, if you had been given like scientifically accurate information regarding pregnancy and not just it's not a baby, it's just a clump of cells, don't worry about it, I'm not going to show
Mhm.
you anything, like do you think that that would have had an effect on your decision, or do you think in that moment being at the abortion clinic like it was already too late, or was there like pressure from anybody?
I was looking. I was looking for several reasons to not get the abortion, and like I said, I didn't grow up in a Christian household, so I wasn't doing what I've heard some women say they were doing, where they say they're praying and they're saying, "God, give me a sign that I shouldn't do this." I wasn't doing that, but I was wishing for a sign, like just in general, like to the universe, whatever. I was like looking for any like glimmer of like, should I not do this? even before the ultrasound, I asked the counselor, I was like, Do women ever, get this counseling and then decide not to?" And she was like, "No, not really." And so I was like, "Okay." And it's almost like I was asking her to see if other women were doing that. Like I might feel a little bit more, pushed toward, okay, I think I'm going to do this too. And then I get into the ultrasound room, and the ultrasound technician had the screen turned away from me, and I said, "Can I see?" And she said, "No." And then my mom was standing in the corner, and she was like, "No, Nicole, you really don't want to." And I was like, "Okay." And so then I like looked away, and I was like, "How far along am I?" And the ultrasound technician was kind of fumbled a little bit. Like she was surprised I asked, and she was like, "Oh, 6 weeks." And so I'm not even sure if that was an accurate answer,
Right.
but I wanted to see, and I wanted to see what it looked like on the screen. So I feel like that too. Like if she had said yes or let me, see, maybe I would have been like, I can't do this.
Right. Well, your
Yeah. So
story
like,
like perfectly shows why informed consent is so important. When there's an abortion happening and you're not being given all the information and you're being lied to and you're not allowed to see what's happening or to know what's really happening, that is so wrong. It's so wrong for medical professionals that are supposed to be medical professionals and alleged, pro woman feminist type people that are wanting to help women to give women all of the information about
yeah.
what's going to happen and to show them what's going to happen. It's wrong for people who know what's actually happening to withhold information. For what end? Right? Because if it's not about choice and it's not about, hey, do you really want to do this, then what is it about? Is it about abortion quotas? Is it about the money that they're making? Like, and it's just heartbreaking to even dive into that because
Mhm.
you and other women like you then just become, in their eyes and in their minds, just another one,
Yeah.
without any like care.
Yeah. If
Oh,
I'm not mistaken, even in 2005, I'm pretty sure the ultrasound rule was the screen has to be turned toward the woman, and she was supposed to be printed off a photo and like holding the photo, or like given the ability to hold the photo while she's waiting for the abortion procedure. And, of course, in those moments, if that were really happening, the woman would have the ability to put it in the trash can if she wanted to, not look at it. But that was supposed to be the rule. And
yeah.
the
Well, and how
screen,
many of those women, you
right. I wasn't given a photo, and the screen
know,
was turned away from me. I was told, like, when I asked to see, I was told no. And not knowing my rights, I didn't know any
yeah.
better and say, "Well, I'm allowed to see that if I want to." Like, I know my rights. I didn't know my rights.
Oh, that's just heartbreaking. I know you've shared the story so many times. I'm glad we're
Mhm.
talking about it because it's important for people to understand that this really happens. I have so many people saying,
Mhm.
well, that never happens. They always follow the laws, like the abortion clinic, they
Mm-mm.
always follow the laws. Women know exactly what's happening. It's like, that's not the case. And if that's not the case, then that's not really a choice.
What's even, I mean, just to get further into the lack of being medically informed, abortions cause a whole plethora of issues, like even later on in life, and that is not disclosed to women. I'm not even sure if it's in like some states like documents. You know how like women are given like this packet to like look through. It's not very big, or at least it wasn't when I had that done at 16 in North Carolina, but it was just a couple of pages, and it was like, you're signing the consent that you're agreeing to this, and they're not going to be held liable if something happens. But there's no, sharing of information as far as like, hey, this could affect getting pregnant later on in life. Hey, you run a risk of hemorrhaging when you give birth later on in life if you so choose to have more children. Unfortunately, it was something that happened in my case with my firstborn son. I hemorrhaged, and I found out after the fact that although like there were a couple of reasons why like I hemorrhaged after birth, One of the main reasons was that I have old perforated scars in my uterus. And that is a common thing when you get abortions, even though you're not informed that you will likely suffer perforations and it will cause you to have a weak uterus.
So wrong. That's just
Yeah.
terrible. It's good that we're sharing the facts though now. You are doing this full time. You're doing this work. You're
Mhm.
helping other women to not go through that because you've experienced it, you've lived it, not only just the abortion itself, but all of the everything that you had to do afterwards in order to heal. What was that process like for you, like the healing process?
Well, for one, that was like that pain of the abortion was something that I had suppressed down for a very long time. I guess like at that time when this occurrence happened in my life, some friends of mine suffered a loss with their baby, and for some reason, God chose to use that incident, and it affected me as if I was suffering from like PTSD over the abortion that I had had, just out of the blue. Like it seemed like it wasn't really causing an issue in my life, or at least I was suppressing it well enough for 14 years, which is how long it had been at that time since I had had the abortion. But these friends of mine, my friend Elisa, her baby was born and he died right after, and it affected me as if the abortion had just happened, and I just felt this like huge swell of grief and just remorse out of nowhere, as if I had, again, as if I had just done it. And almost this like thought came into my mind, and like looking back, I really feel like it was God. He used that incident, that little baby's death, to uproot this. And it was like this thought of they didn't have a choice, but you did. And it just like hit me like a ton of bricks. And over the course of that year, like got to a place where I went to post abortive counseling. It was through the service called Save One. And it was this very long, like 11-week process, but I stuck with it. And nearing the end of that post abortive service, as I was like feeling, just like guilt leave, and I was able to like replace that pain with like God's promises, and I knew that I was forgiven and like really accepting that for the first time in my life. I knew that I wanted to be a part of helping women and be a part of like the fight for the unborn and join the pro-life movement, so to speak. And so I started really small. I started like volunteering in some stuff, and then my church invited me to open a post-abortive service at our church, which we're still doing. It's called Beautiful Redemption. And I started working for this company called Susan B. Anthony List. It's a nonprofit, and then started working for Let Them Live. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's amazing. And while we're on the let them live topic of, you've
Mhm.
gone through your healing and now this is definitely part of your healing process. I mean, it's probably an
Mhm.
ongoing thing. You're always going to remember, the moment where God was like, you're forgiven. Now I'm going to set you on this path
Mhm.
to use like your pain and your hurt for good. So, what does it mean to you to work for Let Them Live? And what does Let Them Live mean to you?
Oh my gosh. It really makes me like right now think of that verse in Isaiah where God said, I will blot out your transgressions and you'll just like remember them no more. It's pretty much like bringing that to, fruition. And I'm very honored to work for Let Them Live. And I just feel like it's such a chance to walk out like the redemption that I experienced, and to have a hand or just even a small part in getting to tell a mom that she doesn't have to make the same mistake. And more importantly, that fear drives abortion, like even like fear of not meeting, like, like your finances. It's not a problem fixer. It's not going to fix the problem. Like abortion's not going to fix the problem. It ends up being a problem creator. And you just you don't want it on your conscience. Like
Yeah.
it's not worth it to live with that kind of regret.
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice and words to women that are considering abortion. And I think about this a lot. You and I are similar with let them live in the sense of I mean, maybe I'm more public because I'm, doing this type of stuff, but we're
Mhm.
both kind of behind closed doors in the sense of we're not, counselors. We're not
Mhm.
counseling, women on a day to day basis, even though we once were. But, even though you're behind the scenes, you are like behind the scenes, that has become so important and critical and crucial to let them live existing, that even though on a day-to-day basis you're not maybe directly talking to the women that are coming in, you're making sure that let them live can live for years and years and years to come and
Mhm.
continue to help so many women. And so as a pregnancy counselor you could probably help hundreds of women, but in your role right now you're going to ensure that let them live does what it needs to do, and that type, like all the HR operation stuff, does not get left behind, so that we can continue to grow and exist. So I'm
Right.
just so grateful for you and your role, and not everyone wants to do the role that you're in, so it's a huge blessing for us too.
Thank you. I would like to add, just if there's any let them know supporters like watching this and, feeling like there's not much difference you can make. I just want to go back to that moment as I was being driven to the abortion clinic, because I had seen on the news, for one, this when I was 16, social media was not really a thing. I had seen stories of there being like protesters outside of abortion clinics, and I knew that they were like, well, not I didn't know, but I had seen in the way they were portrayed in the stories on the news channel is that they were like extreme, like fundamentalists, like Christians, like angry. They hate you and they're going to tell you like, oh, you're going to burn in hell for what you're going to do, and just hateful. But as we got closer and closer to that abortion clinic, that was another thing that I was looking for, like a glimmer of hope with. I was hoping that I would see someone or hear someone tell me what I'm going to do is wrong. But when I got there and when we started to get out of the car to walk in, there was no one outside at all. And I was a little, yeah, I was just a little surprised about that because I was like, I thought these people are like frequently at abortion clinics, and this is clearly a clinic. Like it wasn't like a hidden, fake name clinic or anything. But there was no one outside. There was no one holding signs. There was no like Christians praying or saying like God loves you or anything like that. And I remember thinking to myself, where are these people that care? And I hate to you say it like that, but that's how it felt. And I knew that if I had seen people that cared, or if people were there to try to make that difference, I think it would have made a difference with me. But I didn't see anyone. And so, going back to my original point here, if you're ever wondering if you can do something for moms, for women, like our organization is so good because we're on the front lines there and everyone's online now and we're there. And so like this is a place where you could virtually put your prayer, where you can like virtually put money toward helping a mom out, like saving an unborn baby. And man, if something like Let Them Live had been around when I was 16, even though I didn't have like the need of that financial aspect, I needed the help of that counselor to tell me, hey, you're not alone here. Even if like your mom's wanting you to, I'm going to be on your side. And this is just such a good place to pour into if anyone's looking.
Yeah, that's such a good thing to bring up because oftentimes, as pro lifers, we're not sure if what we're doing is enough or if it's actually saving lives or if we're actually helping women. And with Let Them Live,
Mhm.
I mean, you really are. You
Mhm.
can literally see your money in action
Yeah.
helping women cancel their abortions and save lives from abortion. And the other amazing thing about Let Them Live is that we pride ourselves in our collaboration. Collaboration and partnership is probably one of the biggest things that we do, because we realize that we can't do everything to save every single baby and help every single mom. So the partnerships we have with sidewalk counselors, with pregnancy centers,
Mhm.
is so vital in saving
Mhm.
lives. And so
Mhm.
if anyone is watching and now feels called to donate, please do. You can go to
Mhm.
letthemlive.org. You can also go to all of our social media platforms. We got Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, probably a million others. But we'd love to see you on social media. Give us a follow, share our content, and please, please donate. The more money we raise, the more moms we can help, and the more lives that we can save. Nicole, thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your testimony. I know every time I hear you talk about it, it just moves me. And I know that it's going to find the right audience. So thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I would like to give a special shout out to Patrick at Moon Shadow Studios for doing such an amazing job of editing our podcasts. Let Them Live is a Christian nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are considering abortion primarily due to financial burden. 73% of women have abortions because of financial struggles, and we're here to bridge that gap. Our goal is to provide the emotional and financial support women need to feel empowered to choose life. If our cause resonates with you and you're interested in learning more, getting involved, or making a donation, please visit our website at www.letthemlive.org. One amazing way to contribute is by joining our Heartbeat Club, where you can become a monthly donor, and your ongoing support will ensure we can continue helping women every single month. You can also follow us on social media to stay up to date with all the amazing stories and ways that you can be part of our mission. We are on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and Twitter. Just search for @letthemlive.org, and you can also find me on Instagram @EmilyBurning. Thank you once again for joining, and please join us for more upcoming inspiring stories and conversations.
This episode of the Let Them Live podcast was produced for you by Moon Shadow Studios. Put your podcast in good hands today and take advantage of our special first-time client discounts by visiting moonshadowstudios.biz or by following us on Instagram and Twitter @moonshadowstudios.